Hey everyone, how's it going today and welcome back to another update. So President Joe Biden has actually now officially come out to speak once again to talk about the unemployment situation. Now furthermore, I think the other big thing is that we also officially have now received word about the brand new unemployment data, specifically about the jobs report and also about the unemployment claims. There is good news and there is not so good news, and there's just news that whether it is good or not so good will probably just depend on how you see it, but you guys can decide. So we're gonna get started right on the spot to talk everything about what's been going on. But as always, real fast, before we begin, 10 seconds, as always, consider smashing the like button. If you guys enjoy videos like this, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for similar videos. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about honestly just anything. If you are watching this on release date, happy Friday, and let's get this video started. So the new recent jobs report recently just came out today, and the big thing about why this one is actually particularly important is really because of the fact that this new jobs report / unemployment claim actually covers last month and also last week, which also happens to be the final week. So in other words, the final report of the year of 2021. But it also happens to be the report that covers the week when the Omicron situation really started to expand, when we started to see lots of information about like potential lockdowns, announcements, whether this is in America, whether this is in foreign countries, which is very important because again, a lot of the things that happened in foreign countries eventually come to America. And we did talk a lot more about that already in one of the past updates, so I'll put that at the very end screen. I believe the name of that video is literally just called New Variants. It talks about like several other countries, what they're doing, a $300 per week program and everything related to that. But the new unemployment numbers came out right here, and the big thing really is that we received word that the unemployment rate has now officially fallen to about 3.9%, which is under the original prediction of 4.1%, which also happens to be one of the lowest unemployment rates that we've currently had now for just simply put years and years. However, the not so good news is that we've also received report that they were able to essentially create only about 199,000 jobs, which while individually is a lot of jobs, it is also actually significantly a lot less than what they predicted, which was originally they thought was going to come out to be about 422,000. So that is actually a very significant. That's actually not even half of the original target that they were trying to go for. Now, the big thing to know, probably even more significant than that, is the fact that they actually ended up also taking a step backwards in trying to create more jobs, because the previous month in November, I believe, is that they ended up creating that month about 249,000 jobs. So the goal was originally to try to increase that every single month, but this is the first month where they're actually now starting to see it drop back again to under 200,000 jobs. Now, they did also recently release the new unemployment claims, and I believe about 207,000 people filed for unemployment last week. So the final week of the year, that was basically where we finally ended. And on maybe one general good news that they did report is that wages did also interestingly increase by I believe about 4.7%, which means that while it is true that there are still a lot of people that are unemployed, it does mean is that they're at least increasing the salaries of the jobs that currently exist. So hopefully essentially making the jobs better on the financial sense. So I believe is that many people did see a pay increase of the ones that obviously are actually employed. So that is the really bright news. And they also did end up reporting that they saw a massive increase in jobs, but specifically of the jobs that they saw increased, a lot of them came specifically from the leisure, travel, and hospitality industry, which actually makes a lot of sense because those happen to be the industry that was also the most impacted. I also happen to interestingly work in that industry as well. So I work in, the film and the events, as most people know. So totally feel it right there. And I have many friends that also work in that industry. So that is maybe one bright news that we are starting to see in terms of progress happening with the job market, with unemployment, and just simply put is how the country is doing economically as a whole. Now, there was also interestingly one revision that did just come out, which they ended up finding out that in the month of September, October, and November, and at this point, it's probably not yet, but it's probably estimated that it's going to happen with this month of December as well. But essentially, they ended up finding out is that there were certain adjustments that they had to be made, and I believe about 101,000 people were actually also unemployed or claimed unemployment during that time period, but were not originally accounted for. And I think that's the really, really big thing that I think is sometimes very misleading about the numbers. And you guys can feel free to comment if you guys have any particular opinions about that is because every number that we're talking about also happens to be about numbers that they physically count. What it doesn't include is that if there's anyone that dropped out of the workforce but isn't actively looking. So essentially, people that fell off of the unemployment programs, which is obviously millions and millions of people, or people that just honestly just gave up. There were a lot of people that ended up deciding that they wanted to retire early, or they wanted to just take some time off, or they just were not actively looking for things because of a whole bunch of various reasons, whether this is economic, personal, definitely health, that's a very, very big one, or circumstantial. These are a lot of the people that are not necessarily accounted. So the idea is that according to President Joe Biden, and I guess that's the next thing that I really want to talk about, is really about President Biden's speech. So President Biden did come out very recently this morning, if you're watching this on release date, but it is about information from the last couple of weeks, and it is about his plans going forward, which pretty much where he just talked about everything that we just mentioned, which is pretty much about the numbers and the claims, but also furthermore is that he also talked a lot more about just how he sees the economy as a whole. In his eyes, so just in his specific eyes, is that he talked a lot about the good things that have happened, which means that we are starting to see progress. But he actually admittedly did not talk about a lot of the not so good sides to this, which is what's being shared in this particular video. So what this really means is that there are a lot of changes that have been happening over the last couple of weeks and is expected to happen over the next couple of weeks, as most of you guys know all about things like the economy, inflation, rates, Omicron, health, lockdowns, changes to just our lifestyle, our jobs, our livelihoods. It just really, really goes on and on. I did recently make a poll on my channel page that talks a little bit about whether or not you guys believe that we should end up going into lockdown, because it is a very controversial topic right now, and because it's not a very easy black and white answer. There's a lot of different pros and cons to what each of these decisions is expected and going to potentially bring. But the big idea about how this relates to the fourth unemployment, fourth extension, fourth stimulus, and everything related is because at this current time, because Biden sees everything as improving in his eyes, at least certainly based on what he's reporting, it means that it actually lowers the probability of seeing more programs happen. But at the same time, because what he says is not actually fully reflective of what we actually physically seen in terms of when we just walk outside on the streets with things like jobs, as mentioned, jobs, lockdowns, long lines for testing, health, pandemic, everything that's been going on in that world. What ultimately it's going to come down to is essentially just the balance between what he says and then what actually physically ends up happening with the pandemic, with the cases and everything. That's probably going to ultimately end up deciding what they can and what they ultimately decide, or maybe even have to do now in regards to just programs in general. But hopefully this kind of just highlights about what's been going on right now, because I think it's pretty important to know, because everything's all tied together. But as always, if you guys found that stuff relatively insightful, maybe consider smashing the like button if you guys haven't done so. Huge thanks if you guys managed to watch all the way to the end. As always, consider subscribing, hitting the bell as always. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, have a great weekend if you guys are watching this on release day. And hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for watching.